Is Keith on?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Keith.
Okay.
Hey.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Village of Northfield special council meeting agenda of December 22nd, 2020. The purpose is consideration of resolution 2020-60 and matters related to it. Roll call, please.
Mayor Niehes,
Here.
Mr. Magistrelli, Mr. Zur,
Here.
Mr. Zalski,
Oh, here.
Mr. Pips,
Here.
Ms. Noack,
Here.
Mr. Voitush,
Here.
Mr. Bryan,
Here.
Chief Zolgis, Chief Buss,
Here.
Mr. Walters, and I am here.
Moving on to legislation. Brad?
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda, we have resolution number 2020-60, an emergency resolution authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Finley Fire Equipment Company for the purchase of a Pierce Enforcer pumper engine on second reading this evening. Just to give everyone some background, I believe everyone should have gotten my correspondence from, I believe it was Friday. And as far as the latest developments, the agreement is the point where I'm comfortable with the wording, with the changes, and just so everyone knows that the timing of the, as far as the price, we are locked in through the end of March as far as the price, 100% until the end of January, and very likely against something changes where one of the components is discontinued until March 31st. So just, and then Jennifer, as far as the financing end, has financing that she's, I believe, comfortable with. It looks like it's the best deal for the village. We just need some more time to just kind of finalize some things, but we are in, that's the latest as far as the agreement and the financing. So it's whatever council's pleasure this evening. It's in your hands.
I do
I'd
want
like
to
to
say
suspend the second reading.
Yes, Renee, I didn't know if I heard correct. Yes, it's on second reading this evening.
I would like to suspend it.
Okay. Ms. Noack's making a motion to suspend the three reading rule.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Voitish. Any discussion on the amendment of the three reading rule?
Given that this is a budget or an item that is a large expense and something that we would normally put through a budget process, I think that letting it run the three readings and making it the first meeting in January where we would pass or consider for passing also allows fiscal year 2020 to be closed out. No, nothing inky is going to go on there would be appropriate. I know that there's a push to get this truck replaced, and I understand that there's a need and a want to get it done this year. But like I said, I think that giving us just that extra 2 weeks to get the bow on 2020 would be prudent. I know we give a budget three readings, or as much as we possibly can try to give a budget three readings. I think that this is due the three readings as well, so that we've done our full due diligence. What we've learned in the past 2 weeks is immensely more than we knew when we were trying to pass this the first time. So I think that if we just give it that 2-3 more weeks, get us over the 2020 hump into 2021, that we'll be better off.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? Or?
Yes, I tend to agree with Alan. When we go through our budget process or we make a purchase of this size, we normally don't skip the three readings. We let it run through the course of
That's not true.
the legislative. For the most part, Gary, we do. And I think that the price does not change. at all if we go into 2021. I think it would be due to our taxpayers and our decisions to just let it run another 2 weeks, get through 2020, get the truck in 2021, order the truck. I don't believe that the finances is going to be ready tomorrow anyways. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bryan. I'm not trying to stop the purchase of a truck that it seems like we need. I'm not a fireman, but I think we need to do our due diligence, run the 3 course of the 3 readings. You never know, we may stumble on another in the next 2 weeks. Brad and Mrs. Potvin may fall onto another discount we may be getting. We're not losing anything by waiting till 2021, and I tend to agree with Alan. Let's go through the 3 reading process and take care of this in the beginning of the year in January. And that puts the fire truck in the 2021 budget process with everybody else, with the other departments. I feel like this is at the beginning of the year, we agreed to stop all major purchases for the entire year. What is 2 more weeks? I'm not trying to stop anything or torpedo anything or use whatever term you want. I just feel that we ought to do our due diligence and get through 2020 and start 2021 brand new. That's my opinion. And I know everybody, it's just most people are disagreeing with me, and I don't know why, but just the vaccine is here. We're going to be the last people to get it. It's not going to be overnight before this thing is taken care of. And I believe that we ought to wait and put 2020 behind us. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Sure. I was really hoping to hear from more residents. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, I haven't called around and been like, oh, how many people have you talked to? Well, how many people have you talked to? But, everybody makes great points. And I think that in translation, a lot of that's getting lost. I've spoke with a good amount of council members. I haven't spoke with everybody, but each conversation has been, if you ask Ellen will probably be like, yeah, at least 10 times. She said, oh, that's a good point, because it is. And I think what's being lost is that the conversations that are being had are good conversations. And there's things that we're going to agree on, or there's parts that we're not going to agree on. There's all kinds of stuff. That's what makes us a good team. At least I hope so, and I'd like to believe so. But sometimes you have to be like the bad guy and say the stuff that other people are afraid to say, and I guess that's gonna have to be my job. But I have questions. So didn't you just say that there is a price difference in January? Or am I misunderstanding some sort of language? You may be saying something I'm misunderstanding, Brad. So is there the price that I am looking at, is there a change of that price prior to the end of March of 2021?
No, the price is based on the state consortium price. So the way it works is each year effective March 31st there's a new amendment that changes the price. And it's usually, it approves a price increase that's, effective February 1st. As of now, no, Pierce has not requested a price increase for the next year. That would have to be submitted and approved, and it's not effective unless there's orders after April 1st, 2021. Now, so this price pursuant to the contract is absolutely guaranteed through January 31st. There's zero chance of it changing until we flip to February. From February to March 31st, the only way it would change is if some manufacturer of one of the components discontinues the part, making the part completely, where we can't get it through the building process in 2021, and we'd have to substitute a part and do something else. Now, I would say in a normal year, there's zero chance of that happening because these trucks are being produced and wanted. You know, with COVID, I would say the possibility is above zero. There's a chance. I think it would be very unlikely, but you know, there's zero chance until January 31st that this would happen pursuant to the updated terms of the contract, and very unlikely through March 31st. So the price is locked in. We're entitled to the discounts depending on up until March 31st, depending on which discount we want to take, whether it's prepaying in full, prepaying the chassis, or prepaying the chassis after 90 days are the different options. So and Jennifer will work through those options to figure out what the best price is with the financing as to when that starts and what we do.
So I think that's probably where I was getting a little bit of confusion, was because like the January 31st, but then February 1st. So thank you for clearing that up, because now I have a better understanding of what you meant when you were saying that.
Did that answer your question, or?
Yes, that one it does. So
okay.
Another thing that I love to play devil's advocate for is I like to try and always see both sides of the coin. Always. It is one of my biggest personality flaws, because I will challenge myself trying to think on both sides. One of the other questions I still have more after this, sorry. But one of the other questions I have, or statements maybe, I'm not sure, maybe it's both, but I'm very sorry to say that I know I keep hearing, let's wait until budget season, let's wait until budget season. And I can appreciate that. I understand, I get it. But I hate to say that I'm not 100% confident that we won't be doing this again in March. I fear that we will be nowhere different come March. And I don't know if others are afraid to say that, or if they're thinking it and they just don't want, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one thinking it. But there's a part of me that I'm not 100% confident that if we postpone, that we won't be doing the same thing again in March. Because everything is unknown. March is unknown. The whole world is unknown, and I understand that. But I am not confident that this is not exactly where we are going to be and having the same exact conversation come March. I'm not. My other question, or flip side of the coin statement, is this legislation is to approve purchase. It is not to cut a check today. So if I understand correctly, we have approximately 10 months to make the decision as to what financially behoove us the best in 10 months. So in my mind, I'm looking at a timeline as though I appreciate looking at the budget and the things as a whole, and waiting and kind of seeing what the vaccine does and how we move forward from here. But then even after that, we still have 7 months to figure out what financing, or how much financing, or cash payment, or a better deal. So I think that's where a lot of the residents that I've spoke to and even some council conversations, is just the confusing portion. We're going to be almost having the same conversation in 3 months, because in 3 months, the world is not going to be better. It's not. We're still going to wear masks. We're still going to have limited, who knows what. The casino might not be operating any better than it is now, and we will be having these same exact conversations. So I just need some help understanding from council, what's the difference? We have 10 months to make the payment arrangements and plans. We have the rest of our lives to figure out what coronavirus is going to do. What's the difference?
Jen, yeah, if I can answer that, and Jennifer Potvin can jump in and, maybe explain it better than I can. Right now, there's some decisions to be made. One of the options is yes. I mean, we make a commitment to purchase it. One of the options is to not start paying for it until the truck comes in, whether we'd order it now and that's 10 months. There might be an option to defer the first payment until January of 2021, if we get it in then, or even if we get it in November of 2021, or defer it to January 2022. Sorry, I misspoke. But we also have an excellent financing quote now that's good through the end of February that has an excellent rate. So that is an option that will be strongly considered, because we don't know what the financing rates are going to be in the fall and next winter. So this may be something we want to jump on as far as locking in this rate now and prepaying, because there's significant options for discounts by prepaying, which means, making the first payment, actually paying it for it in full, and then we pay the loan payments after that. So if we prepay in full, I think there's an $18,000 discount. If we prepay the chassis, it's in between 14 and 15,000. There's a 90 days after the contract signed option, and those are all math problems that Jennifer can figure out. And to the best of my math, it'd be cheaper to prepay and get the discount, because our financing costs are the new financing costs that we've got for the loan that was, significantly cheaper. We're saving more money by this decreased financing costs than we would be waiting to pay. So I don't know if Jennifer, you can illuminate some of those issues for me and for everyone.
I think the first date where we start to have some uncertainty about the financing, and you can see it in the documents that I put out from First National Bank. Right now, we are locked with that 1.99% through January 15th. And then, so like any other loan, you would have the risk of, if you do not execute an agreement with FNB, anything could happen. I know that both individuals that I talked to at the bank thought that that was very slim, that the rate would change. But of course, that would be the first date. And then, just as Brad described, one of the things that we could look at is a chassis prepay. And for some reason, though, I thought, Brad, the savings was $9,000 with the chassis prepay. And then, of course, we're locked in terms of the $18,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, that's also locked in with the state purchasing contract, and that cannot change until, is it January 31st?
Yes. So yeah, we have that 18,000, I think, prepaying in full for everything option. Savings is 18,000 and change. I'm looking at the offer. Prepaid chassis within 15 days of signing is $14,166. I think on the phone when we were talking, it was a 9,000 figure, but when we actually got the quote, it's 14,000. And then the 9,000 is to prepay the chassis 90 days after signing is 94.40. So
okay, and just to make two final points that I don't think I made in any of my correspondence, and I just lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me in a second. So this loan will go through normal underwriting. And I think that's why they put the January 15th date, just to give themselves some time, understanding that the holidays. And then one of the things that they have asked me for, so I will probably reach back out to Finley, is they want a more concise spec sheet. So instead of the booklet that they have, they would like Finley to prepare a more precise spec sheet, because obviously this will be a fully collateralized loan. So that's the two things that we would need to work on just prior to January 15th. And then we would want some type of board consensus that you were happy with the financing terms. We would lock in the rate, and then the agreement could be made anytime after that. So the first hurdle, or the first deadline, is January 15th. If we are happy with the terms that they presented to us.
So we could essentially, on the first meeting, agree to pass the truck and pass the financing. We'd have it all wrapped up in a nice little bow that first meeting, versus essentially passing to buy the truck now and then figuring out finance and passing it the first meeting. Is that correct?
I'll look at the calendar and just look at what our meeting date is.
Before the 15th.
That's correct. So I would just take the formal resolution to the bank, and that would lock in the rate. And then we will deal with the specs prior to that date. Their underwriters are going to want to do a little work on this. So I to the best of my knowledge, they can get working on that. The biggest thing they want to do is just determine if we're going to be able to lock as of January 15th with that rate.
I'd like to mention something also is, you know, guys, we're in this situation. It's a tough spot to be in, but this truck has been taken off the budget for the past few years. And if we would have done it when it first came up for a budget, we wouldn't be in this spot right now, because the truck would have already been purchased years ago. It would have been paid for, and we wouldn't have this issue. But we are stuck with an issue that truck is a necessity, a need that has to be replaced, not only for our residents, our visitors, but for our firemen also. It is a safety issue.
Can you explain that further? Because I have read through the NFPA, and I don't find anywhere in there where it says required. I see suggested and recommended. I don't see absolutely required. There is no penalty for it. I understand that the truck has some items that need maintained and some items that need fixed on it, and it's coming to the end of its life. I understand that there's
It's actually past its
value
end
in
of
it.
life.
So, Mr. Hips, I can answer that question. NFPA guides everything from our turnout coats, our safety equipment, how an ambulance is, what's on a fire truck. And no, there's no law that says you have to do something. But what happens when I put a fireman in turnout gear, it lasts 10 years. He's in 12-year-old turnout gear. He gets in a fire. The village is liable for any injury because we're knowingly putting him in a situation. NFPA Chapter 5, fire department shall consider the safety as the primary concern in the retirement of emergency vehicles. That fire truck doesn't have ABS. It doesn't have an auxiliary braking system as any vehicle over 36,000 pounds now is supposed to have. The mayor had me review he asked me to send him the maintenance reports from the past 3 years of the fire truck. And going through there, I was reminded of the notes from the mechanics talking about excessive pump noise. The pump relief valve doesn't operate on the truck, meaning if it gets a water hammer, the pump could physically explode. Engine misfire, engine blowing black smoke, leaks in the air brake system. The list goes on and on of safety concerns of that truck. And no, you can choose to not follow NFPA standards and hope for the best. But the entire industry is built on these standards. And when accidents do happen, the very first thing they're going to do is pull the books out and say, well, why did you why did you purposely decide not to follow the standards that the rest of the fire service is following?
I understand that, but the word that's being used is required. It's suggested.
Fire department shall consider
Shall.
as the
Correct.
primary concern in the replacement of emergency vehicles.
That's not required or must.
Shall is a,
Shall is a requirement.
That's
any of my
not in
fire
legal
codes, they
terms, no.
shall have a, I mean, we've been through that.
I understand the need for the truck. All I'm asking for is past the first of the year. It's not changing financing. It's not changing delivery date of truck. It's just getting us to next year. We put a bow on finances for this year. I'm not saying that we put it through the full budget process. I'm not saying we take it to March. I'm suggesting simply waiting for the 3 readings to run their course, and we put it through the first meeting of the next year. That's all I'm asking for. I just want everybody to understand that it says shall and should, not required.
Okay, Gary, are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a couple things to say. First off, it's kind of frustrating because we all knew that we were coming into this meeting at least I was, that we were going to be making a decision tonight instead of now asking for the final reading. When I'm seeing that Jennifer had provided us, and thank you for finding that with FCN for the 199 interest rate, and with giving us the date of January 15th, and our next meeting is January 13th, I don't like that crunch period. I don't like that we're giving a 2-day, and then you're saying also that I could go ahead and start processing that now. Why would you start processing it if the vote hadn't been completed yet? I have talked to several council people as well as quite a few residents, and they're extremely frustrated that we have been talking about this for a period of time. And then again, like brought up at the last meeting, 48 hours prior to it, all this additional information is being brought to our attention instead of during the time when we were doing all of our research so that we could come to the table and be able to take care of this instead of having these extra meetings. I would still like to move forward with my motion, and if anybody else has any further comments, please. Oh, and also, in talking to Chief Buss, another factor in anything happening with this fire engine is our insurance rates are going to be, they're going to change because we're not showing that we're top of the heap anymore, and the possibilities of things happening. So our rating for Northfield Village would change as well. So there's multiple factors. My biggest factor is our residents and our fire department so that everybody is safe. That is my main concern as being voted into for my district ward. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to add one more thing in there. NFPA standard, it says for the word shall, mandatory provisions using the word shall to indicate requirements. So it says it right there. Shall is what shall means. It's required. And as the chief had said, the industry standard is to follow NFPA requirements.
Yeah, I think, Gary, I think the confusion is shall is right, a mandatory term, but I think the word after was shall consider. So you have to consider those things and balance them with all other things. But I understand your point.
Thank you.
And just to respond to Renell, I think, the December meeting, this is a several $100,000 purchase, so it's a little more complicated than buying some other things. Before the December meeting, 2 days before, we got some updated pricing information and some things changed, and so it's it took time to investigate these things with all the other things that were going on and what we needed to do. And from December to now, it gave us the time to find out what the options were. We had originally had information that there was this December 31st deadline. When we investigated that, that turned out to be completely untrue, and that wasn't the real deadline. There was going to be no price increase. It gave us time to get these contract terms.
And I appreciate
where
that,
they
Brad.
needed to be.
And I could say that the one thing that has been beneficial with us waiting the extra 2 weeks is Jennifer was able to find another banking with a 1.99 interest rate. So
Right.
Until January
waiting
15th.
the extra 2 weeks that we were able to find that. But I still think, personally, myself, I think we need to move forward.
Okay. Anyone else have any additional comments before we take the vote? Okay, this is the vote to suspend the 3 reading rule. Mr. Scher,
Yes.
Ms. Noack,
Yes.
Mr. Voitish,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
You're on mute.
No.
Mr. Magistrelli.
No.
Okay, Mr. Hips,
No.
Ms. Domzowski.
Yes.
Okay, motion to suspend is approved.
Motion for passage?
Second.
Motion to pass by Mr. Voitish. Seconded by Ms. Noack. Okay, any further discussion?
Brad, I just have a quick question. Even if council decides to move forward and passing it, Jennifer would be able to then work through the 15th. We're not obligated to purchase immediately into that contract with Pierce, are we?
No, at that point, right, council at that point is directing the mayor to make the purchase. We would not be in a position to sign the contract immediately tomorrow. Jennifer still has to, let the bank know, do that due diligence as far as getting the additional information from Pierce, to be able to lock in the financing, and then we'd actually get a financing agreement. That's something, I would have to look over. I would have to do a, legal opinion letter as a condition of the loan. That's not as big a deal.
Realistically, we're looking January 15th and beyond. I mean, there's no rush for her to have to.
Right.
Just with the house.
Right.
Now.
So what we're saying is there'll be
Approval
some
of it.
things to do. We need the financing in place before we can actually sign the contract with Pierce. So, right, practically, it may not be until the middle of January to actually get this thing signed and sent in, but we would move as quickly and as practically as we can to button everything up. But the vote today would indicate that we are going forward with this. It's going to happen as quickly as
We would be
can do.
waiting to contact the vendor until Jennifer and you are happy, everything is good, correct?
Right, exactly. I mean, Jennifer and I can take it from this point, whatever help we need from you guys, we would reach out to get it, but right, just so everyone knows, it's going to take time, and that could be a couple weeks to get everything in place. Yeah, Jennifer, sorry.
I will need those specs because that needs to be part of their underwriting. So I do need Finley to give that to me as soon as possible because I cannot give the bank the 80 pages that we have. I need it to be concise.
Okay, so I just want to.
So you're clear.
Okay.
Don't you have that in the state bid contract that you guys are going over line by line, or no?
The state bid contract's even bigger.
Right.
Right. So the problem is you cannot expect the bank to go through that. So Finley will need to prepare exactly what is being placed against that loan. What we are using for collateral against that loan.
Okay.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Anyone else? Any comments, questions? Okay, we will call the vote. Mr. Scher,
Yes.
Ms. Noack,
Yes.
Mr. Voitish,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
No.
Mr. Hips,
No.
Ms. Domzowski,
You're on mute, Jen.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, resolution is adopted, and that's it for the legislation, Mayor, and that's it for what's on the agenda tonight. So I don't know if anyone has any additional questions before we move to adjourn or comments.
I just want to thank everyone. As Jennifer mentioned and other people have mentioned, there's a lot of issues on this topic, both, and I definitely see all sides of the story. This was an important issue for me to push just because it's been pushed off a few years, so we really do appreciate it. And then on a side note, Mr. Magistrelli mentioned about COVID vaccines. I sent a letter to the mayor, Jennifer, and Brad today. It is our hope that our firefighters will start to receive vaccinations actually this weekend. So
Awesome.
we are moving in a good direction, and we're pretty excited about it. They are here.
Good. Someone have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Magistrelli. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Noack. Mr. Scher,
yes.
Ms. Noack,
Yes.
Mr. Voitish,
Yes.
Mr. Magistrelli,
Yes.
Mr. Hips,
Yes.
Ms. Domzalski.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:06.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.